condemn me. Because every day when I make a pass by the shop, I can see the price keep going up on the 4-1 span. And the wages, like it's basement that believe, and like no one they can break it, so they condemn me. Of the poor ones, I would not like to see it in the interest of the condemn me. Because every day when I make a pass by the shop, I can see the price keep going up on the 4-1 span. And the wages, like it's basement that believe, and like no one they can break it, so they condemn me. Far as I can see, instead of people want of freedom, they only keep on exploiting, abusing and keep them down. Because we have to work so hard to own something, while some men only sit down weeping, laughing and believing. Because every day, when I make a pass by the shop, I could see the price keep going up on the 4-1 span. And the wages, like it's basement that believe, and like no one they can break it, so they condemn me. Because every day when I make a pass by the shop, I can see the price keep going up on the 4-1 span. And the wages, like it's basement that believe, and like no one they can break it, so they condemn me. Most time I respect, cause I know I see what's happening. And yet still man, some of my people, that's behind them are God's begging. They cannot see how the vampire society keep on sucking we just because of money. Because every day when I make a pass by the shop, I could see the price keep going up on the 4-1 span. And the wages, like it's basement that believe, and like no one they can break it, so they condemn me. Because every day when I make a pass by the shop, I could see the price keep going up on the 4-1 span. And the wages, like it's basement that believe, and like no one they can break it, so they condemn me. Because of opportunity. But I do know the time will come when you of yourself will recognize what I am doing towards the poor ones. So I do hope this message will go floating in the air as a natural penetration towards the edge of all the leaders throughout the world, so that they can see the needs of the poor ones. This is something coming from the man of truth, better known as the man African teller. Chanting with the power of Jah Rastafari, Selassie I the first. Hey!
This one, all from
Scared to do evil, and evil will follow you. I am Joey on the playback list too. You know why women now dressing as man, some too naked as they born, lesbian and homo to in command. So much act of destruction going on here in my island. I'm afraid we head in same direction, because we have no love for humanity, no love for dignity, no love for morality. Everybody no money hungry, no love for humanity, no love for dignity, no love for morality. Jaja send a Moses to help we, help we, help we. Oh Jaja help me, oh my God.
Castellonian chicken.
Castellonian chicken punic. From garbage when some go hit. Today I can see to that some submit. No more yam, no more oko. Kentucky no and go. Forcing we young girls to mature before. Them corruptors so insane. Instead now so I am shame. Some preaching from morning to evening. Because we have no love for humanity, no love for dignity, no love for morality. Everybody now for hungry, no love for humanity, no love for dignity, no love for morality. God just send a Moses to help me, help me, help me. Oh Jaja help me, oh my God. We now go to revolution. In the revelation I see politicians, Satan family, they crucify Christ and now it is me. The innocent they keep bombing, yet then you pay some spending. Human rights no longer existing. The end of time is approaching, so my people start praying. Very soon I know Jaja will step in, because we have no love for humanity, no love for dignity, no love for morality. Everybody now go hungry, no love for humanity, no love for dignity, no love for morality. Jaja send a Moses to help me, help me, help me.
pleasant good afternoon to everyone. Riffle Paul.
Good afternoon, Brother John.
How are you? How are you?
I am good. I am good.
Wonderful. Well, I'm going to hand a pleasant good evening to everyone. I'm getting a feedback somewhere. Everybody turn their mics, the speaker off, the mic off. Can everybody please mute? Yeah. Wow. Okay. Yeah. I'm still getting up here now. Good afternoon, Margaret Francis. How are you? You're muted.
Hi. I'm good. I'm good.
Great.
I'm good.
All right. Nice to have you. Oh, Charles, good afternoon. You're muted. I'm still getting a feedback from somebody.
Yes. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Happy to be here.
Nice. Same. Glad to have you. I'm getting a feedback. Yeah. Still good. Somebody's mic is on. I don't know. Okay. I'll excuse myself from this one. So why I'm getting a feedback. Okay, let me leave this meeting on this end and go over to the other one. All right. Pablo, let me just excuse me. Get back to my original page here. I'll get Pablo back in swing. Yeah, inside the house. Stand up for something.
You talking the talk, people walking.
Wow. Good evening again. Good afternoon to everyone. This is Gem FM. I'm your host for a technical operator for today. And the host is Mr. Rafael Pablo, comrade, friend, and Mr. Michael Batnis. Long time. How you doing, my brother? You're muted. And just Jasmine Eden. Yes, Jasmine. Well, again, I'm going to hand over everything to Pablo from here on in to continue. Pablo, muted. Yes, my brother.
Are we live already, Brother John?
Yeah, we didn't go live on Facebook, we live on YouTube. It's automatically set up and go for photo.
Okay.
Yeah. But that's all right. We're going live on Facebook. I'll hit it when you're ready. Let me know. Hit the Facebook live and we go.
Okay. Well, we are ready.
Okay. So
start this afternoon's session.
All right. I'll give you a host and All right, you have full control of this meeting now. As from now, Pablo, just let the green light come on here for the live on Facebook, and you'll be good to go. Okay, so right there. All right, you are live, brother. So yes.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Brother John. As always, you're always there to support initiatives like these. And it is through the work that you have been doing that I had occasion to be part of your
again.
Operations on Gem FM. My name is Rafael Paul, as you've been told, for those of you who's just meeting me for the first time or becoming aware of me for the first time. But most people call me Pablo. And we have a session here this afternoon where we shall
Pablo, let me interrupt you a little bit. Your picture is coming in kind of cloudy. Your face, I can't see you clearly. I don't know if that's your new transformation, but let's.
Let me see.
I know. I think probably because I'm using a virtual background, and because of the state of the
internet,
the connection. Yes.
Yeah.
No,
All
but
right. We can work on that.
Yeah. So, in any event, this afternoon's session is focused on a subject of national heroes, or the subject of national heroes. And it seeks to ask the question, what are the suitable qualifications for the status of, we hear reference to our national heroes being made all the time, but we have not set out to define who really qualifies as a national hero. When we use the term national hero, what type of person are we speaking about? What would that person have to have accomplished in order to qualify for such a status? And that is the essence of this conversation. We've had one 2 weeks ago where we had Ms. Val Delbert Baptiste, myself, Brother John. This is the second in a series on that issue. And I wish to say a very special thank you to those panelists here who are allowed to introduce themselves, some of whom are no stranger to the GEM-FM platform. You know, I want to say thank you for accepting the invitation to be part of this conversation. And so I'm going to start. Last week I started with a lady because all of us who were there were known on the GEM-FM platform already. So I'm going to start with the newcomers to GEM-FM. And I'll start with Brother Jules. Brother Jules, can you unmute your mic and introduce yourself to our viewers, listeners all day, and to the rest of the team? Just tell us a little something about yourself and your own perspective, you know, in short, of the whole issue of national heroes. Unmute, you're still muted.
Yeah.
Brother
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you, Pablo, and good afternoon to everybody. As Pablo said, my name is Dean Jules, and I'm Grenadian to the bone. I live perhaps in the best place right now in Grenada, close to the Annandale waterfalls. And
Brother Jules, that's debatable. We always have debates about the best place.
That's why I said probably.
So don't go there.
Anyway, previously I worked with the government and people of Grenada for over 23 years in the Ministry of Agriculture, the Forestry Department proper. And I once managed all the attraction sites in Grenada. And also, because of the people of Grenada, became an author of a book called Caribbean Spice Island Plant. I really thank Pablo and the others for bringing up topics like that, because I think it is important to discuss so that we can really identify persons who we can really call or define as national heroes. I mean, I don't have the specific or definitive description of that person, but there are many persons who are actually can be called national heroes. So I'm open to partake and contribute to the discussion in going forward. And again, thank you all for having me as part of this discussion.
I'll be back on video shortly. Can we move on to Brother Earl? Brother Earl, can you just introduce yourself and give your perspective on that whole issue in short?
Yeah, thank you, Pablo, and good afternoon to all of the other panelists. My name is Earl Charles. I'm a retired public officer. My expertise is actually in aviation, but the question might arise in viewers' mind as to what is my claim to being on this panel here. Well, actually, when Brother Paul called me, the first thing I told him that, my friend, I'm not a subject matter expert. But I knew Brother Paul for a while, and I guess he knows of my extracurricular involvement. I am actually a culture and heritage enthusiast, and I've been very close to many of our local cultural and heritage experts. If I should call name, we all know Mr. Michael Jessime and Dr. Angus Martin, and I want to call him our own as well, Brother John. I'm not remembering his second name now, but these are all names I imagine may have come up in the first panel. But actually, you asked me to give my view on the subject at hand. Now, the question of the criteria to becoming a national hero may sound as a very simple question, but the devil is actually in the details of answering that question. Because in preparation for this panel, I did a little research. I just wanted to sound a little intelligent, so I did some research. And what I discovered is that this whole process of naming your national heroes and bestowing national awards and recognition to people is a very, very involved process. I know that Grenada has tinkered with some activities as it relates to recognition, national recognition. For example, the best known is the Maurice Bishop International Airport. We also have a number of streets, H.E. Blaze Street. We have a number of roundabout and other places named after sporting personalities and things like that. So we have been dabbling in the whole process for a while now. But the question arises, what is the legal mandate? Where does the authority come from? And what kind of credibility and what kind of prestige and what kind of benefits can be derived from a person being recognized? We know, being all British colonies, we know of the bestowing of different British accolades on locals, and you have all the acronyms, you know, MBE and the OB and the rest of it. So all of these different pieces must come together in terms of when you name someone national hero, for example, what privileges does that give to that person, number one? How is that person recognized? Does that person have any additional letters, for example, to add to his to the end of his names, and things of that nature? I don't want to get too much into the weeds now. I think there will be enough time in the program to do that. But I am just trying to make the point that it is a complex issue. And just one last point before I stop. On the face of it, it may appear as this is something that would bring us together. But surprisingly, potentially, it could actually create more division within the society than unity. And I'm going to elaborate on that a little later. So I'm going to stop here for now, Brother Paul.
Thank you very much, Brother All. And as I said to you when I did invite you to be here, I'm not an expert myself. I'm just a citizen of the country, and we are all entitled to our perspective on that issue. And that is the way that we need to engage. And that's the kind of discourse we need to have among ourselves as citizens of the country if we are going to grow in a meaningful way. If we are serious about active participation in those conversations that have to do with the enhancement of our country and with our overall development, and to use the favorite buzzword nowadays, with our transformation. So if these things are going to be evident as part of these kinds of discourses, and we would have seen how significant the town hall sessions, where people had the opportunity to quiz the political leader and others. The political leader, he just threw himself out there and said, ask me any question. It is that kind of conversation and that kind of engagement that we need if we are going to, make any impact and make a difference in terms of the kind of discourse that we have. So, moving on to Miss Francis, you next, Mr. Batista, leaving you for us.
It's all right.
Miss Francis, it's good to see you again.
I know. Well, hi. I'm Margaret. I prefer Margaret as opposed to Miss Francis. By way of background, I am Trinidadian. My parents are Grenadians. I've lived in Grenada. I went to school in Grenada, and I've worked in Grenada. In fact, my first job as an adult was in Grenada working with Government Information Service. So I came up through the ranks before leaving and coming to the US. I'm a trained journalist, although I don't practice. I know work in healthcare. So that's kind of like something of my background. And so when Pablo asked me to be on this panel, you can tell you that I said to him, I don't know, I'm going to try. I don't know what I can add to this conversation. But like Mr. Charles, I did do some, just to prepare myself for this, some backgrounds. And one of the things, I came across a quotation coming out of Trinidad and Tobago that somebody wrote, at least a group that was put in place to sort of, identify heroes and people to honor and that kind of stuff. And what I liked about it is that it said, to know our heroes is to know ourselves, our values, our collective history, and who we are and what makes us great. And acknowledging our heroes is an acknowledgement of who we are, our history, heritage, and culture. And I think, when I think of a hero, I think of somebody that would have qualities that I would like or aspire to be. It may be things that I believe in, values that I cherish. And I was thinking about, myself growing up, who I had as a hero and why those people appeal to me. And immediately at the top of the list as a high school student was Nelson Mandela. That was the first person that was on all my books. And then I added Che Guevara to that. Those were two people that were there. But why? Because at that point in time, you had liberation struggles all around. I had a value. Human rights was an important value to me. And as such, these people, in my opinion, exemplified those qualities, believed in those things, struggled for those type of stuff. And so they were heroic to me and people that I admired. And so they were heroes to me. And I would like to think too, and I'm sure we'll probably get into that. Those are some of the qualities that I would look at when I'm thinking about a national hero. So I think I'd leave it, there for now.
Okay, thank you very much, Margaret. Let's move from one M to another M. Brother Michael. Good afternoon and welcome to GMFM once again.
Thank you ever so much for inviting me. I think I'm well aware from who Margaret is. I think we've appeared on several programs before. So, Margaret, once again, a pleasure.
Yes.
Brother Charles and the other gentleman, I didn't get his name. He said he worked in the Ministry of Agriculture for a while.
Yeah, his name is Dean Jules.
Dean Dream?
Dean Jules, Jules, Dean Jules.
Okay. Name something.
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
like the sentiment expressed by Brother Charles, who said he's no expert on issues on any type of issue. There are those of us who may differ and see ourselves as self-opinionated and self-proclaimed experts on just about everything. And of course, the term hero and national hero is no exception. It's a subject matter that I have been engaging in extensively over the years. From a very early age, I've been discussing with peers and opponents alike as what is our national, who and what qualifies someone to be our national hero. I think over the years our history has been distorted so much that we tend to present history based on who we like rather than what it actually is. And as a result of that, because of the distortion in history, Grenada history, we have difficulties today in identifying who our heroes are. Because the story, in other words, the stories have not been told. I have immediately two people that I have recognized as national heroes and should be listed as national heroes. And of course, I would reveal the names as we go on. And my reason being, one, a hero is someone who has done some things exemplary, exceptional, bravery, and someone who is selfless and whose works and achievement have benefited our nation in the present or in the future. And I see also as someone who does not have the qualities that I may like, but whose actions I believe qualify them to be listed as our national hero. I heard someone mention about the Queen Honors, about OBE and whatnot. And I think sometimes we confuse a celebrity, sport icon, sporting star. I think we confuse those titles with that of a hero. I think a hero is a lot more than an outstanding cricketer or a national personality or a celebrity. I think we had to put that word hero, a national hero, in a category all by itself. And I feel, in my humble opinion, few Grenadians, I believe, fit in that mold. And I would, if you would allow me to start off by what I see as my national hero, top in the list would be the late, great Sir Eric Gairy. And if you ask me, I would describe why I think he is. I also see Maurice Bishop as a national hero as well. And I would be happy to outline why I see them as national heroes. Starting with Eric Gairy, I think in 1951, he came in, he heard the cry of our people crying out for social and economic justice, invited himself into the feelings, and great things happened. He was courageous, he was brave, he was selfless in terms of sacrificing his own life for that of other people. So I think without hesitation, I think he should stand at the top of the list. He should be distantly at the top of that list. And some of the works that he has done in terms of enacting some legislations which shall benefit us, then now I'm looking at the 1958 Pension and Gratuity Act. Great benefit to our people and who have plagued us over the years. It plagued us then and it plagued us presently. So I see that as being someone who can be classified as a national hero. Exemplary. I see
Brother Mike, if you may hold a bit, we're getting a feedback here. We're hearing some voices. There's someone online who's showing up as iPhone, and I don't know who that person is. Brother John, who would that person be? Brother John? Brother John.
Hi, yeah. There's no ID on this person. I don't know who it is.
Someone is showing up as, and
yeah,
this is not an invited guest.
Yeah, so, I don't know who it is. So, you have control on your end. I'll give control over to you, so you could log this person. I can't do it from my end now. I say only if I reclaim host.
Okay.
They seem to have they seem to have muted now.
Yeah. Okay. Let me reclaim host for a minute, Pablo.
So I got that. I got that. Okay. Okay, good. Okay. Yeah. Yes, so Mr. Brother Mike, well, you have taken us down the road. I mean, you know.
I didn't finish with Brother Morris Bishop. I think I too have to put some credence to his name. I believe he came in 1979, and during the time when we had revolution raging across the globe, and he too entered into the lives of the Grenadian people, and he was brave in leading the first social, not the social, but the first political overthrowing of a government in the Western Hemisphere. I think too he acted with courage. He placed his life on the line, and therefore, regardless of the outcome of his works, I think he should be listed too as our national hero. So I would stop there for a while and give others a chance to elucidate on this matter.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Brother Mike. And as I said, you've really gone ahead, you know, on the issue, because actually we are, in spite of the fact that, as you rightly said, the whole issue of national heroes, it's a terminology that's been on the mouth of many people. However, as a people, as a nation, as Brother Jules said earlier on, and Brother Earl referred to it too also, we have not set out the definitive parameters as to what qualifies an individual for such a status. So while, as you said in your presentation, Brother Mike, it's the accolade of hero and would depend oftentimes on the individual that is asked and the preferences that they hold in terms of the politics and so of the country. The other thing that we have to take into consideration is that when we speak about heroes, we are not merely referring to people who's been involved in the political life of the country. And we will see as we proceed in this conversation here, and certain things I intend to share, what is the rationale and how do we go about determining and coming up with the rationale and the justification for who is a hero. How do you differentiate a hero from someone who may be considered a national icon? For that matter, what's the difference between those terminologies? What's the difference between a national icon, a national hero, and a pioneer? So these are some of the definitions. These are some of the conversations that we have to deal with, that we have to address if we have to have a holistic view that satisfies our national appetite, in terms of putting in place an appropriate mechanism to determine and to recognize those persons that have contributed. To this end, I want to share a clip from my desktop here, and I hope it works. This is the first time I'm doing that. So let's see.
What is a national hero? And
are we all seeing this?
One that says the point of reference from World
Yes.
A national
okay,
hero
good.
is a person who makes significant contributions to the development of society, is admired for any of a number of qualities, including courage and achievement. The national hero is also seen as a representative of the society as a whole. And I should say, the best of society, not just of society, to be representing negative things about society. And do we consider those persons to be heroes? We have to factor that into, but the best of what our society has to offer. Often, a national hero has qualities that make him stand out, such as commitment, self-sacrifice, and dedication to national ideals. He or she generally demonstrates leadership qualities and ethical behavior, showing love for his or her country. The national hero is one who has enriched the lives of others through his or her contributions to society, and may be recognized among his peers of professional organizations. Maybe a national hero for Barbados will not be the same. We would have similar qualities and characteristics, but it will not be an exact fit to what a Canadian might refer to as a national hero or think is a national hero. And I want to pose another question, just a question for the time being, which I think is key. When and how does a person who contributes to the country of a nation building cross the bar from just being a nation builder or community builder to becoming a national hero?
Okay, so did we get all of that?
Yes.
Well, I think in my listing of the conditions that I believe these folks are to have met, I think she has raised she has expressed similar sentiments. And you talk about an icon. An icon is by no means a hero. You could be a sporting icon. You could be a musical icon. That does not necessarily put you in line with a hero. It may be someone with no qualities at all other than bravery. Bravery may jump into a burning building and rescue 5-10 people, risking his own life. That also could be classified as a hero. He has done a heroic act. So the question of qualities, I think sometimes the reason why a lot of names get left out from the listing as hero, because we tend to include some requirements that's not necessary. As I said, what is necessary to become a hero? You must be brave, you must be selfless, and you must have done something that is beneficial for the nation. And they say others, well, the nation, yeah, and as a whole. So that to me qualify you to be a hero. I see some of the doctors and the nurses who bravely risked their own lives and attended to some of our COVID patients during the pandemic. I see them collectively being placed in that category as heroes of Grenada. They stood up during a pandemic when everyone was fearful for their lives. They sacrificed their lives and their families. So they too collectively can be included in that group.
But I have a question in response to what Michael said, and I don't want to take away from anybody's contribution or their achievement. But simply because somebody performed an act of heroism, does that qualify the person to become a national hero?
Well, there are different types of hero. There's one that could be a national hero, and there can be just a hero. He's a hero, but not a national hero. But he can be classified as a hero. And he could be in the same category as a sporting icon, a great singer, a great basketball player, or so on. But when we say national, I mean, we are making a distinction there. That's the difference between that. So those folks who I listed as the doctors, the nurses, they could be listed as heroes, but not necessarily national heroes. The national hero is a class by itself. And hence the reason why I listed two candidates there who I believe by their works have been exemplary. They have demonstrated bravery, their work, their selflessness, their works have benefited many in a meaningful way.
Okay. Brother Pablo, I want to come in, yes, if I may.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think,
yes,
I think Brother Bartis is going down the road where I anticipated that we will. And I was saying that the whole question of national hero is a system whereby it's a national hero and national awards system, whereby, as he mentioned, you have different categories from your national hero. And Margaret did mention in her research, I also came across a quote that you quoted, Margaret. And obviously in your research, you would have come across the system that Trinidad has, as well as Jamaica has.
Correct.
Right?
And the Bahamas and Cayman.
They all have,
a system.
you know, so you have your national hero, and then you have other categories of hero. You have awards for excellent performance. You have awards for, in fact, Trinidad only this year introduced a category called for the recognition of contribution to the advancement of women.
Yes.
That particular one was only introduced this year. So the point is that the system is a living system, right? That you can introduce new categories as the society evolves.
Yes.
Right? I would not want to get into the naming of candidates. I think what we should focus on here is what are the criteria. And I mentioned that potentially this exercise could bring more division than unity. Because, for example, the question arises, should we also have disqualifying criteria? So a person may have done all this good here, but they may have done some significant negative acts as well, right? We have to decide in the criteria, how do we treat with that, right? And that's where subjectivity comes in. And when you have ideological politics and party politics, which our country is so infused with now, you can very well see how any name you put forward basically, maybe with the exception of Julian Fedor and maybe T.M. Arisho, would bring heated debate on both sides. And it's not that one side is right or wrong. It's just that certain things mean more to some people than others. And that is where the difficult discussion has to come in, number one. And secondly, a real authority has to be created by law and not by cabinet conclusion, by an act of parliament, right? Which sets down the mandate, and then you promulgate regulations and policies that outlines the details of the criteria. Or else, whatever you come, if you don't go through that, and some serious public involvement, if you don't go through that process, then you will create more chaos in the society than you solve. And especially when you drop in here our experience with the revolution. There are people on opposite opinion with regard to the let's not just take the revolution, forget the personalities of the revolution. The revolution as an idea. There are as many people who have negative view of it as have positive, and both views are very strong. So we have to be careful in terms of how we have to wrap our head around this thing properly before we go and start to try to implement half-baked policies and measures.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what Mr. Charles is saying. But the other question it raises, are we looking for perfection? Do you expect your heroes to not to have flawed? There's nothing wrong with somebody being flawed. When Michael spoke of Sir Eric and Morris, for example, I mean, in just thinking randomly, if I were thinking about Grenada, Sir Eric did come to mind. No, that doesn't mean that I supported Sir Eric. I mean, by the time I came to Grenada, in the early 70s, he was well past probably, everything that he did. And by the time I came, my family was also split. I mean, I can speak from that experience. You had half the family who supported him and half of the family who didn't. And yet still, I remember, so I had an aunt who died just recently. She was 90 something. And I remember one day, she wasn't a supporter of Gary by then, but I remember one day, just talking to her and just asking her, what it was like, why people were so loyal. And she proceeded to explain what existed in the conditions that existed in the society at that point in time. Hence the reason. And so when Gary came along, what he did for people like her, certainly, or people who, the farm workers, the estate workers, the domestics, because in her case, she was a domestic. And she worked for one of the prominent families in St. George's. And if she gave you her experience there, it was not pleasant, but that is just what it was. So when he came along, he represented their hopes and their dreams and their aspirations at that period in history. And in a certain sense, he was transformative. So I think, yes, real transformation may be one of the buzzwords today, as they say, but certainly it is one of the characteristics that you will look for in somebody that you want to name a national hero. How did they take people from point A to point B? So I think that is one of the things with me. So even if in his latter years, we can argue about Gary there, but we cannot take away what he did when he came on, and it did change society for the better in many ways. So those are the things that I think, one of the things that we need to look at in talking about your national hero and what you want to put on in terms of what you want to, the qualifications that you would want to look at.
I am agreeing with you. I am agreeing with you. It's just that we need to have that discussion. So we need to hear whatever objections there are and discuss it. We need to hear whatever objection. When people getting married, they ask a question. What? Anybody have any objection? Speak now or forever hold a peace. We need to have that opportunity for people to speak.
Brother Jules, you've been wanting to come in.
Yes,
also be somebody
I listened to both Earl and Margaret, and they're not saying anything different in totality from the other. I want to say here also that we need to look at it as a marriage, because as Margaret pointed out or observed, if somebody would have done something that is positive and actually impact the lives of everyone, and using Gary as an example, a flaw should not erase all the good things, because there's still evidence here that we can take and continue as a positive that help our country to develop. On the other hand, as I say, we need to make it a discussion. Let me bring in here, and earlier Brother Mike talk about icons and what's national hero and so on. What's about the sanitization workers who we normally branded as garbage collectors, right? They speak to the health and well-being of the nation. They get up 3 o'clock in the morning and they're exposed to all kinds of elements because people put all kinds of sorts of things in the garbage to be disposed, and their lives also come at risk at times. But we really never recognize them. And I'm making it here. I mean, I've said that I'm not going to go to any independence big rally because I've never seen any one of them being recognized or awarded, because we see them as garbage collectors. But they are national heroes too. You know, the contribution they're making. It may not be a big lump sum of money that they bring in or find grant to do certain things, but the contribution they're making, small as it may seem for us, is that to make sure that the environment is kept clean and kept, rid pollutants, pollution, etc. But they're there, but nobody see them as important. But to me, they're equally important because we are co-equal in my mind. So I just wanted to raise that as well.
Yeah. At this point in time, let me share with you okay, look, let's see. Share screen. All right.
Can a national hero also be somebody who is flawed?
I want to respond in a way that says, first of all, we are human beings. We are all human. All have a flaw or another. It happens, though, that some flaws impede your ability to contribute to your community and to be an example to the nation more than others.
Yeah.
Right? Some flaws are hidden. So man is complex. So there are people who, when it comes to their contribution to the nation, they seem like perfection, right? But sometimes if you speak to their women or you speak to their children, they have a different story.
Yeah.
Does that make them less of a hero? I'm not sure. And that's why that conversation is so important. Because in one facet, one area of their life, they have been excellent. They are distinguished, right? And they have managed to not to allow the flaw that they have as human beings to impact the society. That's another key factor. If that flaw negatively impacts the society, that's a different matter.
Yeah.
That's a different. And John and I could talk, we could know of big national heroes. I think of one in particular who we know had a flaw, but in the public image and the public's another serious flaw.
Yeah.
But I was hidden from the public view.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you know something that a lot of us
And
cover it
I'll
up.
add, John, that many of us who were close to that individual would never, even today, the person has passed, would never publicly maybe demonize or reveal that flaw. Who knows? No.
Yeah.
Because the other contributions that the person made in the public space overshadowed the flaw.
Okay. So, as you can see, that issue has already been a subject of conversation. What is the extent of the flaw an individual must have in order to not qualify? We had Brother Earl mentioning earlier on. Okay, and it's interesting, Brother Earl mentioned earlier on that, there has to be some disqualifying conditions. So what would cause someone who has done wonderful things that make them be a worthwhile consideration for the status of national hero? What grievous, thing that person would have to do so as to not be provided or to not be allowed to have such a position or to have such a status? Miss Francis, Margaret, let's start with you.
I agree with what Val was saying when she said, unless that act or that flaw is so egregious that it extends out to where the public and the society as a whole is affected by it, I think it shouldn't, then you would have to use that as a means of disqualifying the person. I couldn't, because again, as she pointed out, we are human beings. We all have flaws. It's funny. Many of us admire, the world, most people admire Martin Luther King. But as was pointed out, boyfriend was a philanderer. But nobody remembers that. We remember what he contributed to the civil rights struggle and the improvement of Blacks in the United States. And certainly that extended outward because we know that movement also influenced other movements in other parts of the world. So are you going to hold that against him when the impact of his work, his life work, had such a great impact on societies, not just in the United States, but certainly in the Caribbean, in Africa, and in other parts of the world? See, so I agree with her. It has to be something that's really, 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 really egregious, that society is so affected by it, that it creates such trauma, such, I just can't find a word to describe it, but something of that nature that would disqualify the person, in my opinion.
Brother Mike, I see you eager to go. Let's get from you.
Well, I heard Brother Earl talk about a parliament bringing something, making something legal, not a cabinet conclusion. And we probably forget that 99.9% of parliament legislation comes to a cabinet conclusion. And the cabinet conclusion is a combination of political people. Is one branch of government advising the other branch as to how we move forward. The terms of disqualification. You cannot disqualify a heroic act. Someone may disgrace themselves in the latter years, but how do you disqualify someone who have invented the cure for maybe tuberculosis, dengue fever? How do you measure what they have done later on to that which they have done that benefited society? And you mentioned the revolution, some may be for and some may be against. I was against and still against, but that does not mean that because I'm not a supporter of the leader of the overthrow, that didn't mean that I cannot list him as a hero because of a particular act that he performed at a particular time on March 13th. He had the bravery, he was selfless, and he did something exemplary. So that in itself stands out. The result of what he did is judged in a different category. You see, and that is how we distort our history. And we are suffering from that today. Our history is not well documented because we tend to put things in perspective based on who we like or what unfolded over the years. And the other brother, Brother Jules, mentioned sanitation workers. I don't know if they reach that level of heroism. I think what we could classify them as brave, the outstanding essential workers. I think they have to be categorized in a far, far different category and maybe given an award for for performing some essential services and recognized. A recognition, by the way, is not to be seen as being a hero. And hence the reason why in the Queen's honors, we put in OBE, MB, and so on. We give someone a label based on what they have done for a particular time. So let's not misconstrue the word national hero. That in itself is a sacred term dedicated to people who have done something heroic and have made a positive impact on the society as a whole, regardless of what they may have done later down the years.
Well, thank you very much, Brother Mike. You know, this conversation here is really evidence of why it is necessary for us to have this discourse. Because, as I said from the beginning, and Brother Mike alluded to it also, it is a term that is used all the time. It's used loosely. But from this conversation here, it's evident that we need to get to the point where we have nailed it down that this is what qualifies an individual as a national hero. And I think this is the point that Brother Earl was trying to make when he made reference to a cabinet conclusion, because we know that there are some things that are done via cabinet conclusions that don't necessarily have to go before Parliament. But Brother Earl is saying that this has to be something that we've gotten to the point is like when you're going to implement a bill to become an act for something, that there has to be some legislative framework. And I believe that is what Trinidad or Barbados or Jamaica would have gone through in terms of determining who or what would qualify a particular individual for any element of the National Heroes Awards and recognition. Brother Earl, you wanted to come in on this?
Yes, Pablo, I think you're absolutely correct. But I think the discussion is centering on the crux of the matter, which really and truly is going to be, regardless of your establishing criteria. Yes, and generally speaking, we know what the criteria are. You know, broadly, the problem is going to come when you're starting to actually assess a candidate against those criteria, right? And because what it will boil down to is, as was mentioned, everybody has a flaw here or there. The question is whether or not the total on the debit side and the total on the credit side, what is the disparity there? How does it bottom line? You see? So I think that is where the real task is going to be, when you have to actually apply the criteria, the judgment. And that is why I mentioned that you ought to have a commission that is correctly formulated by an act of parliament. You see, when it is an act of parliament, it lends credibility to it to start with. And then secondly, the caliber of the persons that's going to be on this commission. One last thing. I know I stand corrected here, but in the socialist communist world, they only nominate national heroes posthumously, right? There could be a reason for that. Okay, because as we have seen recently all over the world, persons who have been acknowledged as national heroes in all the US, all across the world, these statues have been pulled down by the masses, right? Statues that have been standing for centuries. You see, so it's so important that we tread correctly when we venture into name, especially the highest level accolade, the highest level, national heroes. And then you have different levels of however you want to call it, because in Jamaica, I think, for example, the highest award, which is national hero, has only been awarded to a person alive one time, which was Bustamante. In all other cases, it was posthumously. And it could only be awarded to, if it's awarded to, let's say, a public servant, it could only be awarded after that person has ended the service. And again, there are reasons for that. Because somewhere down the road, I mean, when history is written by the victors, sometimes when you revisit history, you never know what could be uncovered, So again, the question comes now: Can an award be revoked? It's a question that have to be settled as well.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Margaret.
No, if I was just going to add to what Earl was saying, yes, on that question of history, and that was part of the reason why so many of these statues were pulled down here, because people started pointing to the racist and the fact that they were slave owners, or all those stuff. So that contributed to those things being pulled down. And again, just to add to what he was saying too, the concept of the national hero is such an important one, and so much thought must be given to it that even countries that do have national heroes, if we were just speaking about the Caribbean, for example, they're so limited in number. In the years, Jamaica has just about 7 or 9, not more than that. They haven't done one. Yeah, somewhere.
Seven, I believe.
Right. St. Vincent has only 1. Somewhere else, I think it's Cayman or something like that. Under their rules, it has to be done. This can only be done every 10 years. They kind of like all these limitations. In some cases may have public recommendations, others don't. They have a special committee that's there that, based on the guidelines, makes those selections. And speaking of St. Vincent, under their laws, the person can only be declared a national hero after they're dead. So you cannot be declared a national hero while you're alive. So, there are all of these things. It is really something that a lot of thought has to go into before you can seriously declare someone a national hero.
Definitely so. Brother Jules?
Yes, in some way, yes, I agree with some of the suggestions. But in thinking about it critically, I ask myself, can someone be impactful and unimpactful at the same time? All right. Where do we go with this? Can we or should we erase something great that still create and maintain a platform for what I call dynamic development of a nation because we learn later on that they're flawed in some way? I don't think so. Because if something is creating, for example, an opportunity for a nation to thrive consistently from generation to generation, why should we erase that accolade granted to that person because we learned that they had some weakness? And I mean that can be argued, but this is my take on it. Where do we go from here? How do we look from it? How do we package the criterion that will ensure that what these persons have actually contributed to our nation is not erased?
You know, Mr. Jules brings up a really important point there, and it immediately brought the debate over Columbus and the celebration of Columbus here in the United States. So, you know, and I mean, sometimes people say, oh, it's the US, but, you know, you can see so many parallels. And I think Columbus is a very, very, very good one because I think we can relate to him in the Caribbean. We see him a certain way, certainly. Whereas when you deal with the Italian-American community here, you know, because they will talk about moving Columbus statue, for example, in New York City. And no. That created a big issue. The Italians were not having it because to them, he's a hero. But to the Native American, and certainly to those of us who were brought here involuntarily as a result of his presence in this part of the world, we don't see him as a hero. So there's been this big debate over that here as well. Some people have suggested, okay, well, they can have the statue there, but let's put something near to it or on it that states that he also did this as well, you know? So it doesn't, you know, that is kind of like the dynamic you see out at play here, you know, one thing against the other. And both sides have valid, I mean, if I'm an Italian, he's Italian, I'm proud, you know, as far as my history taught me, he discovered the world. He came on this part of the thing. For me, if I'm a Native American, I'm like, how could you discover me? I was here before. You came here, you brought diseases, you killed me out, you took my land, you did all this kind of stuff. That is also true. How do you find a balance between the two?
Yeah, and I think it comes down to the whole issue of who qualifies for that upscale status of national hero, who qualifies as a pioneer, who qualifies as an icon, you know, and so on. In that vein, let me share another video with you, if you don't mind. And I think that takes us right into that plane. And it also speaks to another matter that we have a serious issue with in our country. The whole issue of archiving our archives. Presently, if we were to seek to identify or to go through that process of selecting our national heroes, recognizing our national heroes, we could come up against some roadblocks because we have not adequately documented the contributions of our peoples, of our icons, our pioneers, or whoever over the years. So let's hear what came out of this conversation in Trinidad.
Heroes, Pioneers, and Role Models of Trinidad and Tobago is the latest book from author and researcher Mr. Nasser Khan. And of course, we are celebrating our 60th anniversary of independence. And so we have Mr. Khan in studio just to share a little bit about the book and tell us who are some of those pioneers that would have made TNT exactly what it is today. Now, this book, I mean, it is so timely because we're celebrating our 60th independence anniversary. Tell us a little bit about it. Who are some of the pioneers we can see in this book?
For our 50th in 2012, I was engaged, that's the 50th.
This is the 50th one, yeah.
I was engaged by First Citizens to produce a hard copy of our heroes and pioneers.
Yeah.
And the It was a literacy education initiative designed to give copies to all schools, libraries, NALS, UE, UTT, all educational institutions in Trinidad and Tobago, and 5,000 copies at that time were distributed, hard copies. A couple months later, due to demand for more hard copies and of course budgetary constraints, First Citizen said, well, okay, let's put it online. So an ebook was created, and between then and today, I am told 1.6 million
by children, whoever doing social studies. Personally check because uncle in there, Kimberly check for somebody in there. And out of the 400 people, when any of those pioneers were subjects of assignments for school students, this was the go-to text, although it's not in the curriculum. So while it's a book you won't get on bookshelves, it's a sponsored initiative for educational literacy. So fast forward to 2022, 60 years, have the pioneers changed? Heroes and role models? No,
they haven't. So what we've updated the 60th version for is all our nation's modern leaders since 2012. So you'll have, prime ministers, presidents. We have updated the chapter on highest national awards. Of course, any book would have a little errata here and there.
Yes.
So we've updated for that. We've added a couple of people who inadvertently left out.
Okay, so we just got a snippet here of the whole issue of archiving and the issue of the selection process. How do we filter? How do we filter and ensure that people who qualify for the particular status or for a particular status? And as we just saw from that presentation, there's this documentation that distinguishes between national heroes, between pioneers, and between national icons. So essentially, if we are to get to that stage of recognizing those people who have contributed to our nation building, we will have to determine what categorization any particular individual will be most suited for. Brother Mike?
Well, I tend to agree with, to a great extent, to Brother Jules. Events cannot be erased at all. In the case of Grenada, the reason why we're having this conversation, this continuous conversation as to who qualifies for a national hero, is because our history has been distorted for a long, long, long time. How many of our young people actually knew that flour bags used to be used as garments for our people? How many of our young people actually can look at our history books and said, there was a time when Grenadians worked for a shilling a day? These stories have not been told for whatever reason. So people who participated in the transformation of our era at that time, we having difficulties today classifying them as heroes because we do not know the truth. How many of our young people can actually go into our library and look at what happened in 1958? How did the Pension and Gratuity Act came about? How many of our young people know today that there was a battle that took place in Latin Junction, where workers were actually fighting the British regiment, where 4 people died in Latin Junction, fighting the British regiment over workers' rights in a social revolution that happened then, and as a result, the 1958 Pension and Gratuity Act was born, something that we are fighting for today. Everyone talks about the pension and the gratuity. Does anyone know the real history, how that 1958 Act came on the books? No one knows. All they talk about their constitutional right. Did they know that Agatha Fraser, Newton, and all of these guys were standing there with a cutlass where they were gunned down, cold-blooded murder by the British troops when they were fighting for their rights? Do they? All of these events have not been truly documented. We go to Latant and we may see something on the headstone of those folks who died there, and we brush it aside. We never investigate to find out why we were not told the truth. Why our people used to be saying that a particular individual made them wear panties. What happened? What caused that phrase? What does that phrase mean? It is a historical, it is something that is historical. You see? And if we were to investigate all of the events that took place, we would have a better understanding as to where we classify people today in the terms of being national hero, because all of that has been lost. The Carib Stone. We said at one time that all the Caribs in the country, men, women, and children, even the elderly, march up to Sates and jump over Carib Leap. And we accepted that as a fact. Have we challenged that and said no, that a disabled elderly man could not leave his bed, a baby could not leave, a pregnant woman could not walk from Calivini to find her way all the way when the island was inhabited with Caribs at the time? No, we don't, because from the time of colonization, occupation, our history has been distorted, and it becomes a norm to distort Grenadian history. So our young people don't know the truth. And if you don't know the truth as to what happened, you do not know your history. So how can you seriously list anyone as a national hero without you knowing what happened then? What contribution did they make in the effort to eradicate all these wrongdoings? You see, they mentioned Bustamante. Bustamante did not become a national hero because of his political activities. He became a national hero because of his activities within the trade union. He was a trade union leader. So that is where all these accolades was bestowed upon him as a national hero, because he fought for workers' rights and so on. So we have to blame maybe our foreparents and our colonizers for not leaving us with events, proper documentation as to events that happened then, so we can follow. And as a matter of, and hence the reason why a lot of our people today are in ignorance. They know it's nothing happening. How many people you can tell today, you know, Grenada had a salt pond, and Grenada, you could have gone to the salt pond and take as much salt as you want and go home. You did not have to go to the supermarket to purchase that. How many of them know that? Not many, because there is nowhere in our history we could find this vital information. So we are a nation that's lost. And maybe we have to start from somewhere, but we have to start documenting events regardless of whether we love the person or not. And it is not a question of the qualities, it's a question of events, important events that took place at a particular time. That is what history is all about. Not who we like, not the qualities.
I do agree with you that there's significant elements of our history and our culture that is not being documented, that has not been documented. And that is a matter that we need to address, you know, in an expeditious manner, because over the years we have not done a good job of archiving what has happened, whether in whatever discipline, there's significant records that have not been documented appropriately, so that a young person coming up, a student who's studying, someone from wherever who's looking for some background information on Grenada can go into that document and get that appropriate information. So that's another element that is related to this whole issue of our national heroes conversation. Brother, all you were going to say?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, going back to the clip that you just showed there, what it demonstrates that despite the experience that Trinidad has in terms of recognizing the national heroes and awarding people, you realize that it's still a work in progress, right? So they still have to be working on it and perfecting it. With regard to the subject, going back to the original question, Brother Pablo, I would suggest that you try to get the quote that Margaret used in her introductory comment. That quote encapsulates the criteria of a national hero, right? And with regard to the public's interest in their own heritage and history, that is a perennial problem. Very few people who have a passion for culture and heritage are laboring in the vineyard, right? Almost single-handedly.
Okay.
Yeah, almost single-handedly. A few people who are passionate about culture and heritage are laboring in the vineyard, right? I know, let me give you an example. Brother Michael Justimi, I have to say almost single-handedly created what we call the Tricentennial Park in St. George's. That's 300 years of I believe it's the founding of St. George's Home. And he created a plaque in that park. The intention was, there are a few names on it. The intention was to add a couple names on the anniversary every year, recognizing significant persons of significant contribution within the town of St. George, for all different reasons, regardless of what it is. Right? I think it will be very interesting reading to look at the names on that plaque and inquire as to who was that person, what was their contribution. Right? So now, Brother Baptiste, I think, made the mention about the nurses. And that is where designing the whole system is really open to us to make it really Grenadian. You can, in fact, recognize a group as a profession, right? I recall Black Wizard has a song called Pan Man. I'm not sure if that's the correct name of the song, but Pan Man is in fact a recognition of Pan Man as a symbol, as he said in his song. Pan Man, you're my inspiration, and you're a symbol
of determination.
Right? Symbol of determination. So that's what a national hero has to do. They have to be an inspiration and a symbol of what we are capable of as a people. But I want to say, though, that that's an excellent exercise. You are starting the conversation, and I think that it's a very, very useful exercise. I really hope it results in some positive outcome.
Well, as you say, we have started the conversation, and I would trust that that conversation is going to expand and extend. There is one final clip that I want to play, and I think it highlights in a greater way the point that I really wanted to make a while ago. So here goes.
When you put together a book like this, it's difficult to capture everybody who would have been integral to the cultural fabric of Trinidad and Tobago and our history. How do you filter down who makes it and who doesn't make it?
That's a great question. So we have the table of contents, right? And we have in every area of human endeavor from arts and culture down to writing and in between. So you start with agriculture, business, community, culture, economics in alphabetical order, education, environment, fashion, law, medicine, oil, politics, public service, radio and television, religion, science, sports, trade unionism, and then writing, journalism, and newspapers. And then we have a chapter, some firsts in Trinidad and Tobago, a crossword, and of course the reference sources. So in putting the columns, let's say you set up a spreadsheet and you start putting people here. Trinidad and Tobago, as small as we are, but so many diverse areas of development, we came up with 1,000 people, let's say. And I worked with a curriculum department of the Ministry of Education. And of course, you had to whittle down now, how do you qualify as a pioneer, a hero, or a role model?
How do you qualify as a pioneer, a hero, or a role model? Yes, very interesting indeed. Anybody wants to come in here?
Yeah, Pablo.
Yes.
Just listening to the clip and the work that was done by this gentleman in regards to Trinidad and Tobago, it takes me to the point where I believe that we need to get to preparing, I should call it a template of the criteria and looking at all the disciplines. And that will help us to place persons who have contributed in different areas where they're suited for, right? And should be acknowledged or recognized. Without that, we would be here arguing and not with a fight, but sharing our experience and knowledge or opinions without having anything concrete to nail us to the point where we want to get to. That is to identify who are national heroes or icons or pioneers, etc. And I have to say, we are not far from there, but probably we do not have it on the book, and we do not have the institution that will designate that kind of work or person in the area and so on.
All right. Thank you very much, Brother Jules. Margaret?
Okay. Icon, pioneer, national hero. Well, I think national hero, as we've said before, it's a little bit more complicated and certainly will take a lot more. When I think of a pioneer, I'm thinking of somebody who has been the first to have done something in a particular field, of endeavor, whatever it is. So that's my thinking of a pioneer. You were definitely the first to have done so. An icon, I would think of somebody who's representing a particular field. So, when you think of something, and let me see off the bat, what can I think of that a person that's an icon? Oh, so let's since there's such American influence in the Caribbean, and sorry for using these extreme, but I think everybody here knows who Michael Jordan is. So, if I would think of an icon, I would think of him as a basketball icon. So if you mention Jordan, or if you mention Shaquille O'Neal, somebody of that nature, that's an icon, a basketball icon. So you don't even have to, if people know them and you hear the name immediately, what comes to mind? Sports, basketball. That's kind of like how I would, say differentiate between someone who's an icon or a pioneer or a national hero. Of course, you can have blurred lines because a person could be both. A person may be even all three. So, but if I were to differentiate, that's how I would differentiate the three.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Brother Mike.
Well, I think I said earlier that there's a distinction and a vast difference between an icon, a sporting personality, a celebrity, athletic star and a hero. And my version of being a hero is one who have contributed significantly for the development of the people in a particular event. And I say that I put forth 2 candidates, and it's not because of the politics, but it based on events that they participated in that I believe was heroic and outstanding, and hence the reason why I have labeled them as potential candidates for to become national heroes. This discussion is a very interesting one. It is an ongoing one. It is one that I've been involved in for many years, and I still hold my own on that as to who I categorize as heroes, because based on my limited knowledge of our history, I follow the history and the lives of these 2 men, and I can place them there. I'm sure there are others who can or may be placed in that category as well. But I think what happened over the years, history has not been very kind to us in terms of Grenada in documentation, and it does not give us a lot to work with. So it is based on my life experience on the works of these 2 men. Henceforth, I have made certain nomination for the names to be included at some point in time as national heroes.
Yes, thank you, Brother Mike. Brother Earl.
Yeah, yes, brother. I think that we as I said before, we basically agree on, in general terms, what the criteria are. What I think is that is why it's so critical to have the legal and policy framework in place. That is critical, and there is a process to that. Because let me tell you one of the reasons why that is important. Take, for example, we had a number of places named, especially during the Revolution. Fort George, we had Bernard Bailey Secondary School and the rest of it.
Yeah, right? we had Fort Rupert.
Fort Rupert and so on.
Mm-hmm.
But I do not know.
And that's when Windsor Park became
Cuthbert Peters and things like that. Okay, good. But because I imagine you did not have the legal basis, because if you had the legal basis, then it would have been you would have had to go through more hoops to reverse it. You couldn't just reverse it just like that. Somebody come and say, let's change that name again. If you had a legal basis, then you would have had to go to Parliament, right? And some act, as the case might be, would have had to pass. So it is so important.
Brother, if I may interject here.
Yeah.
The fact that some were changed and some were not is instructive as to the rationale behind the reversal. Some were reversed and some were not.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Windsor Park, as we knew it then, is still Cuthbert Peters Park today. It was not reverted,
Right.
Although Edward Street, which had been renamed Diamond Street, Daniel Small Street, that's the back street in Guelph, which had been renamed Daniel Small Street, was reverted. Okay, Bernadette Bailey was changed to Hatfield Secondary. Okay,
right.
But you have those instances, like in the case of Windsor Park, that was not reverted. So there must have been some other rationale, and not just that there wasn't the legal basis for it. There must have been some other rationale that would have been taken into consideration in making that decision. Go ahead.
Yeah, but there would have been some rationale. But the question is, what is irrational? We should know, the people should
Yes.
know that this is the process that have to be gone through to change that.
Yep.
Right?
I agree
The
with you.
powers that be at the time should not be able to decide based on their politics or based on their international geopolitical expediency. You may have to do something. That's not how this thing should work, you know?
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. I agree. Let me just share with you, seeing as we were speaking about so much that the youths are not aware of, and the need for us to get our youths to appreciate this stuff. Let me share this clip here with young people speaking about the heroes in the country.
Nanny of the Maroons, Paul Bogle, George William Gordon, Samuel Sharp, Marcus Isaiah Garvey, Sir Alexander Bustamante, Norman Washington Manley.
Nanny, unselfish, willing to put the needs of others before his or her own needs. I am Paul Bogle. I am determined, able to be strong and firm. You decided what to do.
I am George William Gordon. I am strong, able to endure force, pressure, powerful.
I am Samuel Sharp. I am helpful, willing to make things easier for others.
My name is Marcus Novea Garvey. I am industrious, always working hard and making sure to do the work from home.
I am Sir Alexander Bustamante, and I am just wanting to help ensure that people are treated fairly.
I am Norman Washington Manley. I am kind, caring, helpful, and friendly. We are the national heroes of Jamaica.
So here we have a sampling of how young people are being sensitized to have an appreciation of the national heroes. And I am seeing that we are in a position. We haven't gotten to the point of establishing the criteria, but we can begin to sensitize our young people of the need and why it is necessary to recognize those persons who have contributed in a significant way to our nation building exercise, our nation building process. So as we close for the evening, can we have, we've had some beautiful exchanges, a lot of information has been shared. Can we have some closing remarks from each of you, beginning from my top left to me, Mr. Baptiste, Brother Baptiste. Yes, some closing remarks as we bring an end to this.
Once again, Brother Pablo,
because we can go on for the next few hours on this. There's so much to talk about. Yes, Brother Baptiste.
Once again, Brother Pablo and the management of Gem FM, I want to thank you very much for affording me the opportunity to participate in this discussion here this evening. I want to thank our panelists, Brother Charles Brother Margaret Francis and Brother Jules for their...
The Margaret. Ooh, you're changing Margaret gender, man. No, I don't think. I think Margaret Francis showed that one.
Sister Margaret.
Sister Margaret. Yes.
I'm sorry. Oh my. Please forgive. Keep up the tongue. Sister Margaret, I want to thank you.
Go ahead, Brother Mike.
I've been on a school program, but I don't know how I could have the slip of the tongue. Your name should be.
I know that happened. It just demonstrates. It does demonstrate what Miss Gordon did speak about in the previous one. You know that we have our shortcomings as human beings. The slip of the tongue is just one of them.
Of course. Please forgive. Yes, I want to thank again everyone for their participation in this evening's event. It's a very interesting topic, and I'm looking forward to continuous discussion on it. I think so. This event have highlighted the failure of our country to document events and to make it easy for everyone to just look at history, look at the facts. But unfortunately, our history is written based on who we like. We have no history of the Caribs, what happened, the real history of the extermination of the Caribs. We have no history of the Indians as indentured laborers. We have no history of the struggle in 51. We haven't had a true history of the 79 events and so on. So I think once we compile true history of Grenada, it would make it easier for future generations, to look at history and determine clearly who fits into that category. So we have our work cut out for us, but it's a start. And I'm happy that this station, as usual, is lending itself in that regards.
Brother Jules.
Yes, let me say also thanks to GEM FM and yourself, Pablo, for putting this discussion together. Brother Michael, Baptiste, Margaret, and Chalo. I believe, just as Brother Baptiste said, we are on the right path, and we need to be focused and continue this discussion. But I want us, and whoever might be tasked with putting the criterion together for recognizing national heroes, should bear in mind risk taker, agent of change for betterment, and self-sacrifice. In this, I'm looking forward to partake in the future in going forward, because I think it is a healthy forum, and I would like to see not too long from now that our history is being taught at our schools.
Okay, thank you. Lady Margaret?
Yes, so I want to join with those who have gone before me in their comments. You know, I really do agree with that. Conversations like these are very important. You know, it's important that we tell our history and tell our own stories. For too long, we have been defined by others. And so we need to have these conversations. We need national heroes. They're there, you know, to help us aspire to be our better selves, you know, to aspire to something higher. And, you know, that as Brother Jules said, history is important, and we have to document these things for future generations. It's how we will continue to maintain our civilizations and to ensure that, you know, we continue and go forward and prosper and grow as a people.
Yeah. Brother.
Thank you, Brother Pablo. Brother Pablo, your last clip. demonstrates one of the reasons why we are where we are, right? And I'm not blaming the youth. I'm blaming the adults and the holders of power over the years. Now, as a youth growing up, I knew more of the national heroes of Jamaica than I knew of Grenada. When you listen to the lyrics of Culture Club, of Culture and the other reggae singers, you would know that there is a reason for why we are where we are. You know, so I just want to say it was a pleasure being on this panel with the other panelists. And Brother Pablo, I just want to congratulate you, commend you, and your folks in St. Mark's. By the way, you know, I have some identification with St. Mark's. I used to teach at the St. Mark's Anglican School during the Revolution.
Okay.
So there are some people in the late 40s.
That would have been your students.
Yes. I hope I have not revealed my age, but anyhow, so it really was a pleasure. And you know, call on me anytime. I'll be happy to
yes. So you see, as I told you, you don't have to be an expert to be here speaking on national issues on Gem FM, okay? You don't
well, you know, the most important person sometimes in the court of law is not the lawyers, you know, it's the members of the jury. So it's not necessarily the experts. The lawyers are the experts in the court of law, but the member of the jury have the final word.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like the internet gremlins have gotten Pablo. Yep.
Margaret, I'm hearing you, but I'm not hearing Pablo.
Hello?
Yeah, it seems like the internet gremlins. Okay, it seems as though he's back. Pablo, you back?
You're back now, Pablo.
Yeah, he seems to be frozen. That happens a lot. Coming from...
Yeah, Pablo is frozen in time there.
Yeah.
Well, I think he also lose Pablo. I think he gone out altogether. I think.
Yeah, he dropped off.
He dropped off. I think he's internet probably dropped.
Back.
Yes,
he's back. All right, he's back. All right, Pablo.
Okay. Yes, as Margaret said, the internet gremlins. And as Brother John would say, Brother John, how do we say?
I forgot, but it's something to do with Murphy's Law. Murphy have a way of come in and do what she want and go when you want, you know? Yeah, Murphy. You plan everything. Murphy just mess up everything for you. So, yeah.
You hearing me, Brother John?
Yeah, Murphy. Refer to Murphy.
Yeah,
Murphy always. Yeah, Pablo. Yeah, go ahead, Pablo.
Yeah, I just, well, let me get it. You hearing me now?
Yes.
Okay, well, let me get it over and done with quick. Yes, let me once again say thank you to you gentlemen and you lady, Lady Margaret, for joining us here this afternoon, myself and John. You, John, for doing what you always do, facilitating these kinds of conversations and so. And as the evidence demonstrates, it's a conversation that we need to have. If we are going to get to the stage like some of our sister islands, where we have a mechanism in place, where we have a system in place that recognizes those persons who have contributed to our nation building in varying ways, so that they will qualify for different status, whether it be for pioneer, whether it be for national icon, or whether it be as a national hero. that is a determination that we will have to make. That is a conversation that we will have to have, because the evidence shows that identifying those persons and giving recognition to them, as we've seen with the young people of Jamaica, they have role models that they can identify with. They have a history that they can associate with, and they can use as pillars, really, right? Or they can use as an agent in the development and in the growth, and in developing their own sense of value as to who they are and the place in the world. Okay, so let me say thank you once again as we bring a close to this evening's session. And there definitely is going to be more conversations, because there are other people that I've spoken with who are inclined to come on here and lend their voice and their perspective to this whole issue of who qualifies for the status of national hero. So thank you once again to our participants and to our viewers online. Have a good evening and a good weekend, everybody. Brother John.
Yes,
any
sir.
final words from
Well, any final words? Again, question. I want just one thing about the naming and renaming of the streets and schools. I drop a comment in the chat. For example, I draw reference to Barnett Bailey. Some of the very people who was supporting the bombing in Queen's Park wouldn't have want to see that name up when they know they are the perpetrators and supporters of the bombing in Queen's Park, where that lady lost her leg and many lost their lives. So to have them have that school will be a reminder of the act of destroying our lives in that case. So that was one reason why that school was not maintained the way it should be maintained. Oops, I think we lose something here. I've been gone a while. What happened here? Yeah. So that was one of the things. But I think our naming of street that one brother mentioned, if we put in the legal framework, it would have to go through a whole process again to take it off. And I think we need to stop politicizing our heroes to be our heroes and the streets names, and let it be what it should be for the cause that it is for. And let it be done that way. I think we're going to take all the politics in a lot of things that we put too much politics in some of the things that we do. And I'm glad to hear Mr. Baptiste naming two of his heroes to be Maurice Bishop and Sir Eric Matugeri.
Correction, I didn't say Bishop is my hero, you know.
No. As you name it as a hero, one of the heroes that you like to see is national hero, right? And I thought that was a great coming from you. That is something that needs to be applauded. You know, knowing your position that you have taken on this show many times and other places. But I everybody evolve over a period of time and things changes and people have views. And I think the lack of information about this mention of somebody make a mention in the comment. He's 49 years old. I never heard about those things. You know, so it means that 49 years old, and I'm just hearing about some of these historical moments you're talking about here. Usually we need to have more conversation, not just on the hero, but more historical conversations. Bring historians here that could talk about the things that happened in Grenada before my time, before your time, that knows what went on and who have the facts to bring it out here. So probably have to have a historical session, not just a hero's qualification session, but a history session, a history lesson on Grenada, where folks could get enlightened on what and who was the history makers in Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique. I think it's important for us to do that. And Gem FM wouldn't be shying away from doing one of those sessions, you know? So that's my piece right here. Again, listen to Gem FM. Where we say education is liberation. Yes?
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Brother John. And it's at this point that we bring a close on this evening's session. Please join us again. You shall be seeing the promotion when it comes out that there is going to be another conversation on this issue. What qualifies a Grenadian for the status of national hero? All the best. Bye-bye.
Amen to that. All right, tonight there will be no talking point tonight. We'll be off this. We have other commitments to make elsewhere, so we'll be going out tonight outside and those other things. So there's no talking point tonight. So join us next week, Friday and Saturday night for Talking Point. Guys, share the Gem FM, www.gemfm.ca. We operate 24 hours of radio right here, every day. All right?
All right. Okay.
Margaret, you're muted. You're saying something. I can't hear you.
Oh, I was just saying bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, then.
All right,
Thank you.
Margaret. Okay, one love. Our closing Monty song. Our national heroes. Portrait of Grenada.
He's coming up next to do a song called Portrait. Put your hands together for Brian Montes Satisfaci Kaiso. One love, Grenada.
I must worry. Yes, I must worry. I'm so sorry, but I must worry. To paint a portrait of my country, but then I was forced to stop and check out the reality. Life in this country is not what it used to be. So if you don't believe me, just take a look and see. If I cannot drive me girl to a quiet place at night, because afraid a bandit go up with a gun and out we like, I must worry about the state of things in this country. I must worry about the crimes occurring daily. I must worry. Yes, I must worry. I'm so sorry, but I must worry. Worries. I wanted to paint a portrait of my nation, because I see we heading in a different direction. Life in my nation is corruption and confusion. Can't you see it's ignorance and a lack of common sense? When Lucian keep on spreading must worry. Yes, I must worry. I'm so sorry, but I must worry. Plenty worries. To paint a portrait of my homeland, but then I was forced to stop and check out the situation. A
AIDS in this country is spreading so rapidly. So that is just bound to be another cause to worry. When it's an epidemic in this small country, now people start to panic for more love and security. I must worry about the spread of AIDS in this country. I must worry about moral and decency. I must worry. Yes, I must worry. I'm so sorry, but I must worry. Portrait of Grenada, but then I must consider a very serious matter. Jobs in my nation is so difficult to find. It must lead to frustration, more drug addiction and crime. When Grenadians are dying so mysteriously, with no coroner's inquest and no inquiry, I must worry about the mafia in this country. I must worry about police brutality. I must worry. Yes, I must worry. I'm so sorry, but I must worry. I must worry. Yes, I must. Sometimes I ask myself a serious question. Mankind, what are we fighting for? No matter how I try, I still can't find a solution to all this hatred, violence and war. A world that's filled with corrupt politicians. Them scientists and all start to redesign all the nuclear weapons they help to create will turn back like demons to decide their fate. And all the tears of sorrow that the people cry will on the conscience till the day they die. The ozone layer getting thinner. The rainforests are almost gone. Our chance for survival gets slimmer. And all is really through the works of man. Let's change the world for the children's sake. Your plan of destruction is just a mistake. Let's change the world. How long must we wait? Or are we praying for the hands of fate? Oh, aha. Sometimes, aha. Sometimes I check the wall and start wondering, mankind, Where do we go from here? As deep as I could search, I still can see no reason to create so much suffering and fear. A world that has enough for we all to live. Yet those who have, they still have nothing to give. All the bloody money that they stash away will turn back and haunt them on the judgment day. And all the little children that they hook on dope, the day of hanging that will be their rope. The old Sunday are getting thinner. The rainforests are almost gone. A chance for survival gets slimmer, and all is really through the works of man. Let's change the world for the children's sake. Your plan of destruction is just a mistake. Let's change the world. How long must we wait? Or are we praying for the hands of fate? Aha! Oh! Oh! Aha! Sometimes I check that sad wall. Sometimes I search my soul for my conviction. Mankind, where are we going wrong? But deep down in my heart, I know I feel a vibration. And that is why I'm singing you this song. A world that's filled with holy preacher men. Money turned Daniel in the lion's den. Vampire like prophets, so cunning and bold, running crusade rockets, not to save man's soul. And all the crooked doctrine that they preach each day, a time is coming they will have to pay. The ozone layer getting thinner. The rainforests are almost gone. A chance for survival gets slimmer, and all is really through the works of man. Let's change the world for the children's sake. Your plan of destruction is just a mistake. Let's change the world. How long must we wait? Or are we praying for the hands of fate? Let's try and change the world for every little boy and girl. Sometimes it's sad. One love, one heart, one identity. Thank you very much. One love. One love.
Yes. Yeah, President, good evening to you, UNS. This is Gen FM. As we come to the end of this show, I want to inform you that you could also check out Ola's Kitchen at First 77 Oakwood Avenue, right on the intersection of Vaughan and Oakwood. You could go there. They all them. There's curry soup. There's potato pudding, pudding. Just name it. They have it right there. All right, Marby together too. All right, so check them out. Tell them on Gen FM. If you're looking for some food tonight, you can Orleans. There's Orleans and there's curry soup today. Excuse me. And you know the slices, cupcakes and those stuff, the pretty little stuff they have, the treats, they have it all there for you. But check out the oven right now. So go down there. If you're in Toronto right now, come on down wherever you are across the city, come on to Ola's Kitchen. That's on 477 Oakwood Avenue. Authentic Ghanaian cuisine. Check them out. All right. Olama, big up your whole self.
You must understand how much I've missed the revolution. But you may want to know why it took me 13 years to say so. I sacrificed for Westminster back in 83. At that point I was playing politically. I wanted to be a fight for our sovereignty. Then I turn and refer to them as the enemy. I placed the country in the hands of another state. For some reason I thought that was great. I even considered it progress like all the rest. I place all my trust in democracy. Now it's time to laughing at me. and I won't block me John no more. Man, I really miss the rebel. That is coming while like that is going out the style. And I didn't mind because democracy had me blind. I watch empty cross the flow, make the whole thing a puppy show. And still I didn't mind because democracy had me blind. I see some people are lazy like lambs. They got elected to the house, go there and sit down like if they're mute. They have nothing to contribute. They did not bother me all the time because democracy had me blind. When they started beat Kaisonians in the nation about for the revolution, oh God, I miss it. Oh God, I miss it. But the people wouldn't understand what I miss the revolution. Someone accused me of having a very shallow memory. He said as early as 84, I forgot that we even had a rebel. But now my back is against the wall, you will let me on. I should have never let this thing pass through my hands at all. I want the country as it's paying up for sale. I want to stop them now, but I can't drive a nail. For the real cell started in 83. I was so blind, man, I couldn't see. I know democracy and having mercy on me. Every 5 years I fight for a river's game. I can't get so a living here. Soon they're going to sell out the whole nation. Man, I miss the revolution. They sell Grenfell and some people get mad like that. But I didn't mind because democracy had me blind. Grenfell went quite easily and that still didn't bother me because I was blind. Democracy had me blind. Smokey told me that Grenada up for sale. I didn't want to believe his tale. I told him when the government changed, priorities would be rearranged. So that did not bother me all the time because democracy had me blind. In 96, I heard the sense mention about the revolution. Oh gosh, I miss it. Oh God, I miss it. Leslie Clark would not understand, but I miss the revolution. Somebody, bamba da da da. Abella in my class tell me that everything is not lost. Your eyes open now, you could see the revolution creeping back secretly. You won't see M16, you won't see the 52s. You will hear the bombs or AK-47s. Look for advisors and your coordinators in government parties' strategic areas. Yes, the worst is seen, heard and felt. So no need for you to lament. But does they have to cry because they are not the real? No cry! You tell me I must have a little more faith, and I must be prepared to wait. Because if what goes around really comes around, expect them to put it down. Maurice Bishop away, but no match talking holiday. He tell me the mind, you go get all the party time. Maurice Bishop International, would we ever see that at all? He tell me the mind, you go get all the party time. What's about the agro-industry to make that McDonald's my lockery? I miss the end of the new war. The pioneers down the NYO. It's no need to worry your mind. You will get all of that in time. And there is one slogan that you must remember. For whatever God could never hold us. And we say, good God, and we say, so I wouldn't understand what a mystery revolution. Mr. X, the revolution is dead. Morris Bishop would be no more. Would like it, they could pack up and go. So free education, free medical attention. All that would be taken away from the common man. So the communists, they have to change getting in. Capitalism should be other thing. I say Islam is not on my agenda. I just like what best for Dumela. We got NIS, MNID, and the PTS. NCP was another major pillar. To sell it was a big disaster. Our leaders, they're lacking in vision. So I miss the revolution. Say that. We get KFC, but they don't buy no chicken from we. And they don't mind, because democracy had them right. In a multi-party state, we have more division and hate. But they don't mind, because democracy had them right. All the men who have good reputation, you won't find them winning the election. But those who paid in dishonesty, you'll find them winning quite easily. But it's not good that come back the hands at time and going back right back to 79. The belting bottle in soccer competition, they can do that with the revolution. That's why we say, good God, we say, all of the people won't understand what is the revolution. Good God, we say, good God, we say. Well, no one wouldn't understand what is the revolution. Oh gosh, we say, good God, we say. Let me see you, love you, and if you miss the revolution. Oh gosh, we say, and all of us we say. Let me see you, love you, and if you miss the revolution. Come on, my soul, good night.